Hello everyone, welcome back to GGN. This is part 2 for this news report today, Wednesday, May 15th, 2013. I'm Darko, and my website is ggnonline.com. On YouTube, my channels are ddarko 2012, ddarko 2013. The headlines and links will be posted in YouTube's video description probably tomorrow, not tonight, so check them out. Alright, so we were just talking about the elections, or covering the elections of different places, including Iran and Pakistan. We have this. Maduro, Venezuela, says he's planning to dispatch 1,000 troops across Venezuela, or thousands of troops, aimed at countering the rise in the country's crime rate. It says the country has witnessed a rise in violence since the country's presidential elections. Then Facebook and opposition websites blocked ahead of elections. This is Equatorial Guinea in Africa. So Reporters Without Borders condemns the government's blocking of access to Facebook and certain opposition websites. Targets include the site of the main opposition party, Convergence for Social Democracy. 32 killed in fresh clashes between Congolese army and the Mai Mai militia. So militia groups are indigenous to the region and insist that they are Congo's true patriots. Since the 90s, the Mai Mai fighters have forged and broken alliances with a variety of domestic and foreign governments and guerrilla groups. So, it says since early May 2012, nearly 3 million people have fled their homes in eastern Congo, which is, again, that's part of the point, right? Just to disperse people. About 2.5 million have resettled in Congo, but more than about 500,000 have crossed into neighboring Rwanda and Uganda. Nigeria's Islamists staging bolder, deadlier comeback. This is after a crackdown pushed them out of Nigeria's northern cities. Islamist militant group Boko Haram has regrouped, rearmed, and are staging a bold comeback that has already allowed them to seize control over parts of the northeast. So there's been killing and kidnapping. I don't know if that's to fund their operations, like the Syrian rebels. Blast kills 15 and injured 30 near hospital in Benghazi. So this is exactly the way Libya is supposed to be right now. A state of chaos, no unity, pretty bad stuff. It says the explosion struck a crowded area near the hospital on Monday. As security in Libya deteriorates, U.S. moves Marine Force closer. So it goes on here, and it says that one part of the U.S. Marine unit in Spain moved over the weekend to Naval Air Station Sigonella in Sicily, Italy. They said the units are on standby, but the move puts it closer to Libya if suddenly needed in Tripoli. 2 Tunisians arrested over alleged links to Israel's Mossad, says a report. It says media in Tunisia say that 2 Tunisians have been arrested on suspicion of leaking sensitive information to the Israeli regime's Mossad spy agency. The second man was arrested on suspicion of transmitting sensitive information via a social networking website. A Tunisian lawmaker says the spread of violence and insecurity is partly due to Israel's secret interference in Tunisia's domestic affairs, saying that the Mossad has recruited poor and unemployed youth for providing information via the internet. The security vacuum of the post-revolutionary era has lasted more than expected. It's a favorable environment for Mossad spies to cause discord among Tunisians. 178 self-immolations in Tunisia reflect despair of jobless Mideast youth. So, yeah, it's pretty bad. So he stopped in front of this Art Deco municipal theater, poured gasoline over his body, and then set himself on fire. After 19 hours, that must have been painful. One of his last words to the doctor, the burn center, was Fadit, slang for fed up. Morocco street vendor dies after self-immolation. He succumbs to his severe burns in the hospital after setting himself on fire in protest at having his goods confiscated by authorities. So they say here he was just trying to live a decent life, but they confiscated his goods. He begged the authorities to give him back what they had taken, but they refused, so he felt deeply aggrieved and set himself on fire. Next up, Israeli airport sorts passengers with Jewish stickers and Arab stickers. A shocking story of yet another huge humiliation of a non-Jew at Ben Gurion Airport was posted by this Israeli-Palestinian singer on Facebook. So, it goes on here and it says that, so I was checked at the airport, they asked the questions, put the stickers on, and proceeded to the x-ray machine. Suddenly, the young security man comes to me and says, Mira Awad? Says, yes. And it says here, so, can I see your passport? Then there's a mistake with the sticker. And they're about to say, no, I think you're mistaken. I saw you put the right one on, the sticker for Arabs, but I didn't say that. It goes on here and it says, I gave him my passport. He opens it, takes off the sticker and passport, and on the suitcase puts on a new one, the same color but smaller. Just recently, the Israeli airlines or airports, whatever, were in the news basically about tracking people's emails, I believe it was. 65 years ago, UK committed Ain el-Zeytoun and Yassin massacres. Londoners took to the streets on Saturday to mark the 65th anniversary of Nakba Day, Day of Catastrophe, a day when the Jewish terrorist groups completed their first phase of ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in the occupied territories as the UK imperialism looked on. The Zionist regime of Israel was installed through a well-planned British conspiracy on May 15, 1948. Zionists storm this Al-Aqsa Mosque on the anniversary. 53 Zionist settlers stormed the mosque Wednesday morning through the Moroccan's gate under high police protection, while 50 other Israeli children currently broke into the mosque through King Faisal Gate. The biggest violation is expected to take place on coming Thursday as Jewish youth and children reportedly break into the Al-Aqsa Mosque to celebrate Torah Revelation holiday in the Temple Mount, where they believe the Torah was revealed. Germany cancels $1.3 billion purchase of U.S.-made drones. So it says here that they canceled plans to purchase and modify the U.S.-made Global Hawk drones for €1 billion, making the largest German military project to be completely abandoned. So, but it goes on and says the U.S. drones were made by Northrop Grumman. In April, German weekly Der Spiegel reported that Germany is engaged in talks with the Israeli regime to buy assassination drones that are apparently more cutting-edge and technologically advanced than their U.S.-made Predator rivals. U.S. launches drone from aircraft carrier for the first time. So it says it's an expanded use of such aircraft. It took off from the deck from American aircraft carrier for the first time on Tuesday in a test flight that opens the way for the U.S. to launch unmanned aircraft from just about any place in the world. The X-47B is the first drone designed to take off and land on a carrier. It would not need permission from other countries to use their bases. This is important too because it has to do with what the Asian pivot, the so-called pivot, because I've covered before. There's still forces in Afghanistan and Iraq or near Iraq and that, and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. Army pivots to Pacific amidst North Korea threats. The Army in the Pacific remains poised to respond to an attack from North Korea while trying to cope with the competing demands of the rebalance of forces to Asia and shrinking budgets. So that's why they use special forces and drones. And, the whole point, like we've covered before, the whole thing about North Korea, the whole provocation that was going on was completely, they were using North Korea and their leader, Kim Jong-un, to basically to legitimize a presence there aimed at Asia, or aimed at basically China. Asia is becoming Israel's new frontier. It says when you think of Israel, you usually think of the Middle East. It says here it's North America. It's usually a close ally. In Europe, the long history of the Ashkenazi Jews. Really, do we think about Israel and Asia, even less about Asia and Israel's new frontier? We don't think of Asia as playing any significant role in Israel's evolution, given the tiny Asian Jewish population, the lack of significant Jewish history in Asia, and minimal relations between Israel and most Asian countries for the first 40 years of Israel's existence. So it says, last year Israel called 2012 the Year of Asia and Israel. So the Israeli government sponsored an Asian science camp attracting over 200 Asian students to join Israeli students. That's how these relations could be propelled. They said historically Asia largely lacks the anti-Semitism that was so prominent in Europe and also the Middle East. I don't wonder, you have to ask why, right? Like in the Middle East, and we were just talking about in Tunisia, where you have Zionist-occupied governments / usury systems to help enslave those people there. Finish off with this. It's funny that they put this. Economically, Israel's rapid transition from third world power to first world startup nation echoes the great transformation underway in such Asian countries as India, China, and the Four Tigers. Again, I just think this is completely planned and economically engineered by the powers that be. So that's why it's so fast. And, I'm sorry, I apologize for using the term useful idiots. A commenter made a comment about that, and I shouldn't say that anymore. He calls them sleepers. So, basically I do agree everybody has the potential to, quote, wake up. I mean, what we do about it is, I don't know. But either way, you have these term I heard Morris use today, 108 Morris, I never heard it before, Shabbos Goy. Basically a non-Jew who performs certain types of work for a Jew. So basically he was trying to make the point that there's a lot more of them now than there ever was. India preparing for a possible two-front war with Pakistan and China. India continues to view Pakistan as the real threat, even though it is adjusting its military strategy to include the possibility of a limited two-front war with both Pakistan and China. The first blue book on India published by a Chinese think tank said, Pakistan is India's main real threat to maintain a high degree of vigilance and preparedness. Lastly, the report says Indian military deployment on land is mainly fixated at Pakistan, but in recent times is also being adjusted for China and Pakistan. China flexes muscle in Indian Ocean, and the Navy is concerned, says increasing presence of the Chinese maritime forces in the Indian Ocean region has concerned the Navy. It says here Navy submarines, Chinese Navy submarines and other warships in the Indian Ocean region. Russian Navy plans to strengthen its Mediterranean task force and increase the number of its warships as a naval commander. The Mediterranean task force will comprise warships from the Northern Baltic, Black Sea Fleet, and probably the Pacific Fleet, adding its plans to have 5 to 6 warships and support vessels from those fleets starting from this year. Alright, next up, Japan Prime Minister warns of possible military response to submarines. Says the hawkish Prime Minister from Japan could mount a military response if foreign submarines enter its territorial waters while underwater, as Japan and China continue to squabble over these islands. Canadian research group sees demographic-caused economic collapse of Asian nations, including China. Says in its quarterly examination of the economic outlook for the world's major economies, the Conference Board of Canada identifies rapidly aging populations coupled with well below replacement level birth rates in the Asia-Pacific region as indicators that the once powerful economies of these countries are headed towards economic collapse. I said the same thing happened to Japan. So it says they know that this demographic shift is especially prevalent in China due in part to the country's one-child policy. A report says Canada could see indigenous uprisings. Former military official says poverty and anger in indigenous communities mean conditions for an insurgency are ripe. Living standards for indigenous people on par with third world countries, buttressed by a large population of unemployed young men and a warrior cohort, and easy to target economic infrastructure all mean Canada has conditions for a potential indigenous insurgency, according to a new report by a former Canadian military officer. It says here, the MacDonald Laurier Institute, a think tank supported by corporate executives. They actually call it social fractionalization, increases the risk of social conflict. Everybody fighting each other. Then to Russia, and the CIA spy, wig-wearing CIA spy in Russia was investigating Boston bombings. It says the alleged CIA was caught red-handed by Russia, was likely interested in obtaining information about the Boston bombing suspects whose origins were in the Russian Caucasus has been reported. Which is crazy because Russia actually said, right? Remember I said one of the things that can come out of this is either A, the U.S. will then start moving to Russia and start that campaign, or they will unite the, the federal, we just talked about this, the Russian Federal Security Services, along with all the anti-terror apparatuses and infrastructure from the West, and uniting them into one. You had Putin and Russia saying, why don't we work together on terrorism? So why aren't they working together then, right? Moscow summons U.S. ambassador over alleged CIA spy. They summoned U.S. ambassador to Russia, Michael McFaul, following the arrest of an alleged CIA spy. So they arrested this Fogel on Monday after he allegedly tried to recruit a Russian national to spy for the CIA. Of course, the Fogel is a CIA agent. He's allegedly working undercover at the U.S. Embassy. So it says here that Fogel is working as third secretary of the political section. So Russia's basically replied by saying provocative acts, that such provocative acts in the spirit of Cold Wars and no way to help strengthen the mutual trust between Moscow and Washington. This, of course, is after they had the meeting over Syria about how they come to do operate intelligence out of these embassies. Unbelievable. Russian opposition confab at U.S. Embassy. Russian opposition caught filing into the U.S. Embassy in Moscow. Russian MP wants Nazi sympathizers to face criminal charges. So, introducing criminal prosecution for the rehabilitation of Nazism. The move comes after Russian opposition activists' statements during Victory Day celebrations. This is GGN. Thank you.